Thank you, Excellencies. I will now announce MOU number 2, 3, and 4. The second MOU pertains to the zebu cattle genomics and assisted reproductive technologies. MOU number 3 is the pharmaceutical products regulation, and MOU number 4 is genetic resources, agricultural, animal husbandry, natural resources, and fisheries. These three MOUs together will be exchanged on the Brazilian side by the Honorable Minister of Agriculture, Mr. Blario Maggi, and on the Indian side by Her Excellency, the External Affairs Minister of India, Srimati Sushma Swaraj. May I request the two dignitaries to please step forward with the MOUs. Excellencies, this brings us to the close of the agreement exchange ceremony. I will now invite my colleague, spokesperson of the Ministry of External Affairs, to take ahead the proceedings from this point onwards.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we will now have press statements by the two leaders. May I first invite the Prime Minister of India, Shri Narendra Modi, to deliver his press remarks.
Your Excellency, President Michel Temer, members of the media, friends, I am honored to welcome President Michel Temer to India. I am delighted that Goa, with common cultural traditions, is a part of his maiden visit to India. Though separated by geography, Brazil and India are natural partners linked by common values of democracy, rule of law, and shared aspirations for development, peace, and prosperity. President Temer, as a foremost constitutional expert, understand and appreciate this very well. This visit takes place as both countries mark a decade of our strategic partnership. The world has changed in these 10 years. The bilateral relations between India and Brazil have grown for the better. We have increased interaction at all levels. We are also joined together in shaping the international context to support our common pursuit and endeavors. I warmly recall my visit to Brazil in 2014. It was the first country I visited outside Asia after assuming office. I felt the full warmth of our friends in Brazil towards India. Excellency, India is the first country you have chosen for a bilateral visit outside Latin America since assuming your important new responsibility. Your visit reflects the importance we attach to our bilateral relationship. This was evident in our productive discussions this morning. Friends, President Temer and I have reviewed the full range of bilateral cooperation. Noting the potential for much more, we have agreed to scale up our engagement. This is in line with our mutual desire for reinforced strategic partnership Brazil is among our most important economic partners in Latin America. I am happy to note that India and Brazil have finalized the text of a bilateral investment agreement. It will provide much needed momentum to increase bilateral business and investment linkages. We have taken note of the priority that President Temer attaches to reviving the domestic economic agenda in Brazil. In this, India can be a valuable partner. I welcome Brazilian companies to come and invest in India and forge long-term commercial partnerships. President Temer and I have just met with our CEOs to hear from them firsthand. I am encouraged at the steps they are taking to advance pragmatic collaboration. We will fully support this. I have sought President Temer's support in facilitating greater market access and investment opportunities for Indian products and companies. I am thankful for President Temer's positive consideration. We have also made progress in opening new areas of cooperation during this visit in drug regulation, agriculture research, and on cyber security issues. President Temer and I also agreed to intensify and strengthen our coordination in important international fora. There is much that is common in our approach and positions. We will work closely at the United Nations, the G20, G4, WTO, BRICS, IPSA, and other important platforms. Excellency, we deeply appreciate Brazil's support for India's actions in combating terrorism. We agreed that the world must come together to fight this menace without distinction or discrimination. We will continue to work with Brazil as an important partner in early adoption of the Comprehensive Convention Against International Terrorism, CCIT, at the United Nations. We thank Brazil for understanding India's aspiration for membership of the Nuclear Suppliers Group. Excellency and friends, both bilaterally and multilaterally, the partnership between India and Brazil is filled with possibilities that we are keen to harvest. President Temer visits provides an important occasion to work on a roadmap to achieve this. As they say in Portuguese, a união faz a força. Our union makes us stronger. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
I thank the Prime Minister for his statement. May I now invite His Excellency Mr. Michel Temer, President of the Federative Republic of Brazil, to deliver his press remarks.
Eu quero muitíssimo agradecer a oportunidade que Sua Excelência, o Primeiro-Ministro Modi, nos concede neste momento. Nós viemos muitíssimo agradecer a oportunidade que Sua Excelência, o Primeiro-Ministro Modi, nos concede neste momento. Nós viemos para uma reunião do BRICS, mas, gentilmente, Sua Excelência também converte esta nossa visita num encontro
Prime Minister Modi has
oficial.
made this occasion also an official visit on a bilateral basis. And as part of this morning bilateral meeting, we have been able to identify our complementarities and our affinities, our common areas of interest. We've had quite a few meetings earlier this morning, and I have had the chance to time and again congratulate His Excellency, the Prime Minister of India, for the very successful summit, the very successful BRICS summit, and also for having given us all the opportunity to also hold a BRICS BIMSTEC summit meeting, including several countries of the Gulf of Bengal that attended the session yesterday. And those of us from Brazil and also from other BRICS countries were able to hear their views, their opinions, and their aspirations. And it has indeed, Prime Minister, been an outstanding pleasure for us all, and I speak in my name and also in the name of my delegation. It's been a great pleasure to hold this bilateral or conduct this bilateral visit to India. We all know that India in the past few years has experienced very substantial changes. Today, one of the largest global economies, India has grown at very high rates and currently shows a number of areas for complementary interaction with Brazil. And there's also another important coincidence. Currently in Brazil, we are also starting out a process of changing the country beyond recognition. Resumption of economic growth requires an active presence, not only, of course, in the domestic market, but also in the world's main markets. And that, of course, includes India. And we are therefore very much in tune with the priorities set under the Modi administration. These include upholding economic balance, creating jobs, and ensuring inflation is kept under control. During our morning sessions, I've had a chance to mention to Prime Minister Modi a constitutional measure that we're currently introducing in Brazil with a view to ensuring proper control of government spending. In other words, ensuring that the government will be able to spend only as much as it can collect by way of revenues, therefore setting a ceiling to government spending. These efforts have enjoyed substantial support from the Brazilian legislative. So I think it is fair to say that despite the geographical distance, the fact is that Brazil and India do share the very same set of values and objectives. All of us, both of our nations, Brazil and India, are among the world's largest democracies in the developing world. We will, of course, not deny that we are very large economies, obviously. We are countries that are endowed with technological capabilities in several areas, and we, too, have a global presence, both of our countries. Also, our two countries also agree on the need to enhance the rules and the existing international organizations. Accordingly, Brazil and India have worked in tandem and jointly at the United Nations organization level. His Excellency has raised extremely important points in our view, topics such as the defense sector, agriculture, and drugs, or medications, in other words, the drugs industry, the drug industry, pharmaceuticals. We have therefore agreed that we will send technical missions to come and visit India in these relevant areas of joint interest so as to scale up and expand our bilateral relations in these specific areas of shared interest. We have also completed the negotiations regarding the cooperation and investments facilitation agreement between our two countries. The agreement will obviously expand and boost legal certainty for investors. As part of our business meeting yesterday and again today, we have noted that there is a keen level of interest on the part of the Brazilian business community to invest their funds here in India. And we are likewise, of course, encouraging members of the Indian business community to likewise invest in Brazil, especially now at a point in time where we have launched a program called Crescer, which means growing. The growth program is aimed at granting a number of public utility services to the private sector by way of concessions. And I mentioned this to the Prime Minister earlier. And to start out, we have no less than 34 different concessions arrangements available covering ports, airports, railways, highways, the oil and gas industry, to name a few areas currently available for private sector involvement. Congress has also provided great support to upgrade or improve the legislation on these areas. We've also discussed joint initiatives in the environmental arena or the environmental agenda, particularly as regards renewables or renewable sources of energy. I have noted quite especially that recently Prime Minister Modi launched the International Solar Alliance, and Brazil is currently driving efforts as part of the so-called BioFuture platform. And these two plans can certainly move towards a path of convergence and complementarity. Brazil has therefore renewed its support to the Indian-launched International Solar Alliance, and we thus truly trust the integration between our two business communities, as well as the prospects for a very solid and sound integration between our two governments, the two government officials of Brazil and India. In this regard, I have taken the initiative and liberty of inviting His Excellency to carry out an official visit to Brazil. I indicated to the Prime Minister that his coming to Brazil would prove extremely useful not only to the Brazilian people at large, but also and particularly so to my administration. It would be a token of prestige. And having congratulated the Prime Minister for the very successful meetings held in India so far, I also, of course, thanked him for the opportunity of holding this official bilateral visit between the Brazilian government and the Indian government. So having said that, I think I can conclude my remarks by saying that this visit has indeed relaunched our strategic partnership. It is as such a partnership that will gear efforts towards a more competitive positioning of our two nations in global markets, with a view to ultimately ensuring the fully fledged development of our two societies. We do hope that this visit, and I have to say I regret that I will have to be leaving Indian territory in a few more hours, but I truly hope that this visit will increasingly expand our relations. Thank you.
Well, Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the Brazilian President Michel Temer over there after they signed a host of bilateral agreements between the two countries. Of course, Brazil has keenly backed India's NSG bid. The Prime Minister has also thanked the Brazilian President on the fact that they have supported our bid on terrorism.